Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be painting this koi fish. So we're going to be doing some drawing and painting. So this is koi fish with ink and watercolor. And we're going to be drawing the fish first. I'm going to walk you through that. It's very easy. And then we're going to be adding our ink detail first. And then we're going to be painting. So I'm going to share my workspace with you. Go through the supplies. So I've got, I'm painting on an 8x10 piece of watercolor paper today. You can paint on anything of a similar size that works for you that you have there. I've got some tracing paper. So we're going to be drawing and then tracing the drawing so that we can transfer it to the watercolor paper. I've got a sketchbook here that I'm going to be drawing on. This is about an 8x10, 8x11 maybe size. So it's a little bit bigger than my watercolor paper. So I'll show you what I'm going to do to just make sure I stay inside the margins of my watercolor paper when I transfer it. I've got some painter's tape. So we're going to be stretching our paper today. I've got a spray bottle with some water. And then I've got my paint set here. So you can really use any colors you want for this painting. I've done it in a lot of different colors. I have some examples of past ones done. I've done this class several times. So you could do like oranges and reds and yellows. That's very typical koi fish. This one I sort of made up. It's got some blues, cerulean blues, Payne's gray, red, yellows. The example for today's class is a little bit more simple. Just I've got some cerulean blues, some ultramarine, and some Payne's gray. So really, it's really like a 3-color palette. But I've got my little pan set here. I've also got a paper towel underneath my palette. I'm using a number 2 pencil to draw with. So you can use any drawing pencil. I sort of like these number 2 disposable Papermate pencils, just so I don't have to sharpen them. I've got a number 6 round brush. So anything in that size range is going to work just fine for today's painting. And then I've got a permanent black felt tip waterproof pen. This is a Sharpie pen. It's a little bit different black than the regular Sharpie. It's a really nice black. If you have some other waterproof pens, they're like a Micron pen or something like that, that's going to work fine. Anything that's waterproof, because we're going to be drawing first and then painting over the top of that. And then, like I was mentioning before, I like to tape my watercolor paper down to a waterproof surface. I've got these Coroplast boards. I've got a big one underneath my whole work area. And recently I've been sort of using these smaller ones so that you can move your paper around if you want. And like I said, if you would like me to send you one this size, I've cut down some of the bigger boards into this size. It's really handy. Just let me know and give me your address by email. Leanne, I already have your address. But Colleen, if you send me your address, I'll send you one.
Oh,
Or
okay.
you were going to pick one up.
I can just
Yeah,
stop by.
either way works. So any questions about the supplies?
You mentioned cerulean blue, Payne's gray, and what was the third color you mentioned?
Ultramarine blue. And really, like if you had other blues like cobalt blue or Prussian blue, any of those are going to work. You can use like literally anything for this painting. It's really versatile that way. So it can be a fish of whichever color you like. Okay, so any other questions on the supplies? All right. So we're going to start with a really simple drawing. And the first thing I'm going to do is, like I said, for some reason with this painting, I tend to go out of the margins of my paper, and then I end up having to mat over part of my painting, which I don't like. This fish like takes on a life of its own. So I sort of want to stay in, I would say, like, if you want to mat your painting, sort of the 7-inch by maybe 9-inch area on your paper. So now you don't have to do this. This is totally optional, but I'm just going to mark that for myself. So I'm going to mark this paper is 11 by 8, almost 8 to this. I've got a little perforation there. So I'm just going to measure an inch down. It seems like the top and the bottom are the places where I tend to go out of the lines. So I'm going to measure an inch up just so I kind of stay within that 7 by 9 area, because I usually end up matting these. And I'm just going to draw a line there. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's really just to sort of mark my area there. And I'm going to measure 7 inches over from that perforation. I don't know how to say that right. So now I know the area in which I need to keep my drawing. And what we're going to do with this guy is we're just going to break it down into shapes. So I started with a really basic fish drawing, and I added a lot of this embellishment after the fact with the pen, and I'm going to show you how I do that. But we're going to break the fish down into shapes. So we're going to start with sort of the center line to indicate the movement of the fish. And we're going to draw around that. We're going to break down the head into a circle. Same thing with the end of the body. And we're going to add the eyes. They're just circles or half circles. So it's going to be a lot easier than you might think. I'll just set that over there so you can see it. So if everyone's ready, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw that center line right in the middle of the fish. So I'm going to have you now you can either freehand this or you can draw like sort of a starting and ending point. I'm going to draw one point down here, and I'm going to draw another one up here, right in the middle. So I'm going to do it a little bit different than this guy because I went too far off the end of the page to keep him inside of a mat. So all I'm going to do is I've got this point up here, the top in the middle, and this point down here, sort of in the lower right-hand corner. It can be anywhere, and your fish might be bigger or smaller than mine, but now I'm just going to draw a nice sort of curved line. Oh, one other thing that I didn't mention was my kneaded eraser. I kind of like to sketch that line until I get it as curved as I want it. So just a nice curved line like that. And then the next thing we're going to draw is sort of the shape of the head over here. So it's going to kind of determine the shape, the width of the body, the size of your circle. It's going to help us with eye placement. So I'm going to make the circle come almost down to where that point was that we were aiming for. And so I'm just sort of sketching in a circle here,
Not big enough.
kind of like that. Yours might be bigger or smaller. It's going to determine the width of the body at this point in the fish. So just keep that in mind. So if you want kind of a skinnier fish, then you can just make a smaller circle. If you want a fatter fish, then make a bigger circle.
Question.
Getting an oval shape here.
Mine is sort of looking like it might be fatter fish. Okay, so once you have that, we're going to draw a circle that kind of indicates sort of the width of the body at this point of the fish. So we're going to come up here, out to here, and we're going to draw a smaller circle right on that line. Everybody got that? Then what we're going to do is we're just going to connect these two circles. We're going to draw a nice curved line, left side, and a nice curved line on the right side, following the same curve of that middle line that we did.
I'm almost impressed with myself. My gosh, I'm drawing something. I'm gonna who walks on and says, I can't even draw a stick figure. I'm so bad. Shocking.
Good.
It's wonderful. One of the reasons I love your classes. I learn.
Great. That's my goal.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Okay, so now we're going to make sort of the mouth section of the fish. So I'm going to come down here to this point that's kind of sticking out of the circle, and we're just going to draw a curved line sort of connecting the circle and sort of elongating the mouth of the fish there. So just a curved line, kind of a half circle, connecting that big circle with that end point. Then what we're going to do is we're going to cut this circle in half right here. So we're going to have sort of a big plus sign right here. So it should be a little bit diagonal up like that. And we're going to draw in the eyes. So we're going to have one eye over here, it's sort of on the top of the head. So we're going to draw a circle right over that line we just drew for that eye. Then we're just going to draw a half circle right at the end of that line on the outside of the body. And then for this one, I kind of make a little bit of a curved line where it connects to the body. And for this one, I draw a smaller circle inside. And then one more tiny little circle right on that line, which will indicate light reflecting off that eye.
Looks cross-eyed.
Yeah. And then if you want your fish to have like, you know, whiskers, you can draw those in now or you can do it with the pen later. It's really up to you. I kind of like to at least draw in some here. And it could be very simple like that. You can always sort of embellish on those with the pen. And we get there, I made these a little bit fancier with the pen.
Mm-hmm. I heard a car alarm. I had to go check and see if it was my car.
Oh.
I had a road rage thing yesterday, and this guy actually followed me home.
Oh my gosh. That's scary.
It was very scary.
Okay, we're gonna draw this top fin here, and we're gonna draw just some lines indicating where this fin is gonna be. We're not gonna draw in all these lines right now, but we're gonna just take this section here, and I just kind of like to draw some nice curved lines just like that. To place that fin there. We're going to do the same thing on the side of the body. So I'm kind of starting right underneath where these eyes are. And I kind of like these S-shaped lines. So kind of starting curving one way and then the other. You can make these as long or short as you like. Some koi fish have really fancy fins and some have short ones. And then I'm going to just draw another one there. Just sort of indicate where it stops. So nothing too fancy at this point. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this big circle with the end of the tail, or the small circle, I'm sorry, the end of the tail here. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. I can already see that I'm going to go over the edge, and I don't know why I always do this with this painting, but I am going to extend it a little bit up further for the tail. Now I've got some room down here, so when I transfer it to my watercolor paper, I'll move this down, but that for some reason this painting always takes on a life of its own.
Limbs away from you.
It does. It always does. Okay, so we've got sort of this top part of our tail here. And now we're going to draw in this part, this bottom part. So we're going to take a line from the top of this small circle, and we're going to cross it over like this. So we're just going to draw a nice curved line, and we're going to erase some of this when we're done, but we're going to draw a nice curved line like that, like an upside down smiley face. So that's going to give us this part of the
You know what? The
tail.
strip that shows our faces is blocking the painting
Hmm.
part. Well, at least for me anyway, a good portion of the painting is blocked. The upper,
Oh, I can see it.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, must be me. Let's see.
You have it on full screen?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a strip up at the top that shows everyone's picture,
Mhm.
but
Mine's
I
like
can bring
across.
it down a little bit.
No, mine's across the side. I'm sorry.
Oh, the side. Okay.
Yeah. I've got speaker on. That might help. Speaker view.
I've,
Mhm.
Just, I don't know.
let me see.
Hmm.
Okay, let's see. Maybe that'll help. Yep, I have speaker on. Okay, never mind.
And then I'm just going to erase this part of that line so that goes behind, so you can see that it goes behind. And then the last part is just drawing in a couple more little fins right at the base of that small circle. And actually, I want to make those just a little bit bigger. And you can make them as big or as small as you like. So I know it doesn't look like much right now, but if it helps, you can erase this small circle and these extra lines we have here. And if we had more time, we could develop this into a full-blown drawing.
I personally feel like it's a stroke of genius.
Great.
I'm so thrilled with it.
Good. And that's it for the drawing piece, at least this part of the drawing. We'll do much more with our pen. So at this point, we're going to transfer it to our watercolor paper. So I'm going to get some tracing paper. And if you have another technique that you like to do, like a light box or holding it up to a window, to transfer it to your watercolor paper, you can feel free to do that. I'm just going to set a piece of tracing paper over the top. And if it helps you, you can put a little piece of tape at the top to keep your tracing paper from moving. This is a pretty quick trace. It's a little more simple drawing. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace all of these lines. You don't have to trace any of those extra circles or anything. like that. Just the body, the eyes, the fins, the whiskers, the tail. And if you like to paint fish, I'm not going to trace this body line right here because I want the fin to be over the top of it. You could use the same technique to paint any fish, really. Same technique of breaking it down into these shapes and then just modify it to fit whatever type of fish you want to paint. So when you're done with your tracing, it should look something like that. We'll just take a few minutes to trace that. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Okay, so once you have that traced, hopefully you're all getting pretty close to having it. I'm going to write on the top of my tracing paper, I'm going to write the word front so that I know this is the front, because sometimes I get confused when it's tracing paper. I'm going to turn that over. Actually, let me get a piece of white paper to put under there so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to turn that over. So this is the back of my tracing. And I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to scribble some thick lines over all these lines. Now you don't have to get too precise with this at all. We're just trying to basically rub some graphite over all of our lines so that we can use that graphite to transfer these lines to our watercolor paper. It's kind of like making carbon paper.
Yeah, whoops. I did it straight onto my watercolor paper. Whoops.
Don't do it straight onto your watercolor paper.
I drew straight on my watercolor paper.
Well, you know,
Whatever. It's
That
going to be
works.
penned over anyway.
yeah, it's going to be penned over. You can erase it.
Yep.
It's fine. And
So I just-
that's totally an option. You know, you can do it that way. The only reason I do it this way is because it's just a little bit cleaner. You know, you have
No,
less
this was a
erasing.
mistake. This was not on purpose. I just started going. I don't know why. But then I did trace it over. So see, I still have my drawing. So
There
I'm
you
a
go.
drawing.
It's all good.
I was like, whoops, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this on that. But it looks like you're on watercolor paper. You're on drawing paper.
Maybe I didn't say that at the beginning. I hope I
don't
did.
know. Who knows? Everyone else got it right. So how can it be me? How could it be you?
Okay. Once I get all of my lines, my graphite lines on there, I'm just going to you can take a tissue or one of your, a piece of your paper towel, and we're just going to sort of smooth these lines over just a little bit. So I'm not rubbing really, really hard. I'm just sort of smoothing it very lightly, just to smooth it out a little bit, even it out, and pick up any excess graphite that might be on there. I always get these little graphite particles. So just smooth it a little bit, and you might have to shake off the excess graphite into your waste basket. So we'll just take a few minutes to do that.
While we're waiting, can you move the painting over on top of that to the, I don't know if it's to your right, or just move the actual painting over to your, no, the other way, there we go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having trouble making out this one line.
Mm.
Okay, got it. I see what's going on there. Yeah, definitely gonna have to move it down.
I can show you my drawing also. That would be helpful.
So it was more the painting. Because I can't see the whole painting, I couldn't get the concept at the top with the tail.
Hmm.
I was missing. I'm a very visual person,
Mm-hmm.
not so much auditory.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, now I got it. Yeah.
Is everyone else able to see my palette and this painting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
I can.
good. All right, so next thing we're going to do is you can set your tracing and drawing aside for just a minute, and we're going to take our watercolor paper and prepare it. So I'm going to take mine and we're going to tape it down to our work surface. So I'm using painter's tape. You could also use artist tape. And I'm going to tape it on all 4 sides. And when I do this, I just like to make sure press down firmly on the edge. Now with this painting, we're not going to be really getting water all over the whole paper, but you know, if you were, you would want to make sure you get that tape edge down really, really securely so that no water goes under it. Especially if you're taping down and trying to make a nice border. And this painter's tape, I just get this at the dollar store. It's a lot wider than like if you got artist tape at the art supply store, but that's very expensive. So I find that this works just fine. All right, so I'm going to turn my fish back over to where I can see the word front. I'm going to turn it over onto my watercolor paper and then just center it, or place it. Doesn't have to be centered, but just place it on there where it looks good to you. And then I'm going to tape, I'm going to put one little piece of tape at the top so it doesn't move around on me. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trace over all of these lines. And sort of that pressing down will transfer the graphite to the watercolor paper. Now I like to lift up, and I don't know if you can even see those lines, but I like to lift up and check. We don't need super, super dark lines. We just need to be able to see the lines. So don't worry if they're too light. As long as you can see them, that's sort of what you want. We're going to be going over this with pen. And that's, to me, that's the fun part. I love drawing with pen for some reason.
Yeah, like that abstract landscape. That was cool with the pen.
Yeah.
That was I enjoyed that.
I think I'm going to do another abstract type class in June.
Oh, cool.
So I'm getting the class schedule together right now. I'm going to do the watercolor basics. So I have 2 classes for that. One that's sort of like tools and supplies, and then another that's like techniques where we make like a technique chart.
Oh yeah, sign me up.
Great.
Send me an email. I'm ready.
And then and then
I belong to the Catherine cult.
thinking of like abstracts. Go ahead.
I have an associate's degree in art. I took watercolor classes in college, and so many of the basics, we just sat down and started painting. You know,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
this is so, oh my gosh, I've learned, it's just enhanced my painting so much.
Good. I'm so glad.
I'm loving it. I paint every day now.
That's awesome. Okay, so I've got my drawing finished. I just taped my tracing off to the side on the side of my desk here. So we'll just take a few minutes and let everyone get their drawing transferred to the watercolor paper.
Yeah, and I paint differently. I learned when I was in college, we always stretched our paper prior to class or prior to,
Mhm.
and we always used an easel in
An
watercolor.
easel, really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
he showed us how to make our own homemade easel out of a cardboard box. And
Huh.
like even when we went out in to plein air paint, we
Uh-huh.
packed those cardboard easels along with us. We painted,
Really?
yeah, we used huge canvases, you know, like what an arch is, the big sheet of paper is,
Mhm.
surrounded by a piece of paper.
Mhm.
We painted that big all the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, we had our easels with us. Those cardboard easels we made. I was
Interesting.
proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in college, we painted either on those big, like really huge, like drawing boards with the clip at the top, and we would tape it down. If we went outside, um, we took everything out there, but we always had our big, huge, drawing board. Or if we were in class, we painted flat like this, but we had like tall tables where we would stand up and paint.
Yeah, we sat and we actually made our own boards. It's a sheet of plywood
Mm-hmm.
and we drilled holes in it so we could put a little rope so you could carry it
Oh,
because we
wow.
stretched our paper on that plywood
Yeah.
and it was all masked down. And then off you
Uh-huh.
go, your little, you're not little, the sucker was almost as big as I am. I'm only
Yeah.
6 foot.
The
And
other thing we used was masonite boards, and those are very heavy.
yeah,
This is,
this was plywood. I still have it. I
yeah.
had my son cut it in half so I could do not quite so big paintings.
Yeah.
Because I still want to do the stag that you did. I really want to do that big,
Mm-hmm.
but just trying to keep up with the classes and work. That darn work always gets in the way.
I know.
I hate it. I keep swearing I'm going to retire pretty soon, but I have to find a cheaper place to live or not take art classes, one of the two. So I prefer to take art classes. So we'll just keep scrubbing.
How's everybody doing with that?
Good. Very,
Good.
very good.
Good. I got a thumbs up from BJ, so that's good. It's really hard because I can't see what you're doing, anybody. And so, when I did the in-person classes, I could tell where everyone was at. As I get to know you all, I can kind of tell by your body language if you're like done or if you're still working on it, which is helpful.
What?
Yeah, I turned half of my living room into my art studio.
Nice.
Yeah, too bad for company. My son's coming tomorrow to take away a chair that was taking up precious art space. So now out it goes to St. Benny's. They'll have to sit on I have cushions, they can sit on the floor. They're young, they can take it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just take a few more minutes. Let's say 2 more minutes. Does that sound good?
Mhm.
Okay, and then we'll start our pen work. I got 2 new colors. I'll just talk about while everyone's finishing up. I've been adding to this set, so I've got 2 new colors I'm going to try, which have always been sort of standard colors in my palette. I've got this Viridian, which is sort of like a blue-green. Yeah, great for seascapes landscapes. And then a yellow ochre.
Yeah, I love yellow ochre.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need it.
It's
And I
great.
know
with,
I've,
like the seascapes, I use yellow ochre for the sand dunes
oh, yes.
rather than
Yes.
the burnt sienna.
Yeah. Well, I try to keep it kind of basic for the class, as I've said, so that people don't have to buy a whole bunch of colors. But sometimes it's just like, it's just easier. You just can't like mix that right color easily, you know?
Where do you
So
buy those little? Because I have the travel set too. So where do you buy the replacements for the little travel sets?
I got all of this, the empty one and the pans at Colors Art Supply.
Okay, so they have the little, like
They
what you're
do.
opening now.
They have the
have
individual pans or they have sets. Yeah, and they
Okay.
also have the tubes of the Van Gogh colors.
Mhm.
And these are nice because they have the pigment the number on it if you're keeping track of, you know, the pigments between
Mhm.
different brands, which I'm kind of making
Ooh,
a
I
chart.
hadn't thought of that.
But this um
Let's throw away all those little papers.
I'll just do a little swatch of these while we're waiting so you can see what they look like. Actually, I'm going to get my other brush. If you're interested in adding more colors to your palette, these would be two that I would say would be good choices. Really nice, earthy,
Mhm.
warm yellow, and then move that up a little bit. It's nice. Blue, green.
That's the Viridian.
Yeah. And these, I love these Van Gogh paints. They're really nice. Nice transparency when they are supposed to be transparent.
Question? Are,
Yeah.
are they the so-called professional line of Van Gogh?
Well, Van Gogh is, they're owned by different royal talons. So what I found out was Van Gogh is more like the Cotman, like,
Okay.
you know, it's it says professional somewhere, I thought. Maybe not.
It's marked if it's student grade.
Yeah.
Mark on the grade.
It's not marked either way, but when I looked it up, they have a more professional, this company has a more professional brand, and I'm right off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. I know I talked about it in one of the classes, but I'll look. It's in the Blick catalog actually. Or if you go to the website, I'll look it up and let you know. It's much more expensive than Van Gogh though.
Of course. But you're enjoying using these? They don't get chalky
No,
or
that's why I like them so much. I was, really using like the Cotman and
right.
suggesting it for the classes, but what I found was I think they've changed their formula and it like especially like the sap green, I hated in the Cotman. It was like too chalky, like there was white in it or something. And some of the colors just weren't as vibrant as I wanted.
Okay.
So I started experimenting a little bit and this is sort of what I'm using right now. I'm also still using the, the Winsor Newton Professional and some others too. So I know a lot of people like the M Graham. It's just, it's not good for me because I'm always moving my palettes around and taking them with me, and it doesn't dry in your palette completely. So if you have a stationary palette, those are good, but not if you're going to fold it up and take it with you. But I can talk about more of those, that kind of stuff in the basics class.
Mm-hmm. I never
Okay.
used a pan set before until now. I really like them. Ah,
Yes,
these little
they're
tiny
fun.
paints.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the pen drawing. I think everyone's probably caught up based on what I'm seeing. So what I like to do with the pen, and I'm going to bring this example back over so that we can have that next to us as we're doing this for inspiration. I like to go around and outline everything first and then sort of fill in the details. So I'm just going to start by outlining the body. And I have kind of a thin line here, and I don't worry too much about that at the beginning. When I'm doing pen drawings, I tend to sort of build up as I go. And we have about half an hour left. So we're going to take 15 to 20 minutes doing our pen drawing here. And then the watercolor portion of this, once we have a really good foundation with our pen drawing, the watercolor is just going to add to that really with this type of painting, which is I think it's kind of a cool way to do it. Because then you can sort of worry less about
Mhm.
the watercolor technique. It's just gonna add to it. So I'm just outlining all of these lines. And then what I like to do is sort of go back and start adding more lines, making lines thicker or thinner, and like adding the, whatever embellishments I want. And that's what I do. Like when I just do my straight up pen and ink drawings, I always start with sort of a really simple drawing like this and then just add to it.
Screwed up. Eh.
I think for this eye over here, I'm going to kind of add like an inside sort of circle there. You can just, if you want to make it all dark, you can too.
I messed it up.
Well, don't feel like you messed it up yet, because one of the things I really like about pen drawing is you can keep adding to it and sort of cover up anything that you feel like is a mistake for some reason. You can always add another line or make a line thicker or thinner. And, you could do this the other way around. You could do the watercolor painting first, obviously, and then go back and embellish with ink, which is what I actually did with this one. But I think it's going to be, well, A, we would have to let it dry. And B, I think it's just going to be a little bit more fun to do it this way. You're going to see what your drawing looks like, and you'll know sort of how much watercolor you need to add to it or not. And I just use like a wet and wet technique for the body of this fish, and then added, brush strokes like for the fins. Obviously, I've got some spattering here. So for my line drawing, now that I've got my basic line here, I'm just going to start to thicken up that line in the places where it seems too thin. When I do my pen and ink drawings with the flowers and things like that, I don't do a pencil drawing first. I just start with the pen and I just add as I go, which is like, for some reason, it's like really relaxing to me. So I'm just going around here. I'm just, now you don't have to thicken up all the lines. That's the thing. I like to leave some of them kind of thinner and some of them kind of thicker, especially like where two lines meet each other. I kind of like to thicken up that area. But you can leave some of them thinner just to give it a little bit more dimension here and there. Where these fins sort of meet the body. I'm going to thicken up some of these, but not all of them. Or up here at the top of the tail.
So if you were going to paint it first, you would just do the pencil drawing, then paint, and then pen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have to, you have to wait until it's like really, really dry. It's
Right.
kind of like when we did the abstract landscape. You got to make sure it's really dry or you're going to,
Yep.
your
Good.
pen lines won't be crisp. And I've done that. So like when we do the butterfly class, I've done it both ways where you can do the watercolor first and then your pen work. The nice thing about doing the pen is sometimes when you do the watercolor first,
Mm-hmm.
some of the pencil lines sort of disappear.
Ah,
And so if you do your pen first, obviously you have
more defined line.
all, yeah.
Yeah.
So have you ever done a hummingbird painting?
No, but I love hummingbirds.
I do too. I'd love to have a good
Oh,
hummingbird.
that's a good idea for a class.
Me too. Me too.
I did one for my sister last year on a watercolor card for her birthday, and she messed
Oh,
it up, but it's not very well done. So
oh,
Or a rabbit.
oh, rabbit, that would be so cute.
Wouldn't that be so cute? A hummingbird and a rabbit. I vote for those two.
Okay.
Those are my two. My brother loves rabbits, and a friend of mine did this painting, and it's just the rabbit from like here up.
Mm-hmm.
The backgrounds are really bright blue, and then here's the rabbit. Just kind of, it looks like it's peeking over the fence or something.
Mm,
I love it. I thought, oh my god, my brother would love that.
yeah.
He's a big rabbit fan. And the hummingbird, oh my gosh, I have a friend I love hummingbirds.
mhm.
They're just so,
Who doesn't love hummingbirds?
Yeah, I know.
no, huh? How can you not love a hummingbird?
Okay, so I'm gonna start sort of adding some extra, the embellishments like in the fins and things like that. So I'm going to start with the whiskers. And I'll just put this up here like that. So you can see, I just sort of started adding more lines, and every time I do it, it's going to turn out a little bit different. But I just sort of pick out areas where, okay, I want to double up this line maybe, and then add like a little flare to that.
Okay.
So I'm just adding another line and a little bit of flare there. Same thing with this one. Depends on how fancy you want this to look. I call it fancy. I don't know. But then, you know, maybe add a few more little lines like this. And these are just curved lines, you know, with your pen like that. And then I kind of just go in there and maybe thicken up some of these that I just drew. A little tiny bit where it needs it. But it's sort of an iterative process. So I'll do the same thing for these fins. What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start adding some more lines, and I'm going to try to make them kind of varying widths from each other, if that makes sense. So I've got like here some, and these are not, they're ending at different points up here just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then for this one, what I did was I just started connecting those endpoints with these little half circles like this. So that's all that is. Those are just little half circles like that. And then if you feel like it needs a little bit
So
more, then, you know, maybe you added like one more little line out here like that. And then you just connect it with like a little half circle like that.
ugly.
And then add some little curves here and there. Maybe thicken up these lines down here. And I'll show you the same process again on the other fin. And then if you feel like it needs like a few more little lines like this, you can just add those. So again, all I did was I added, just following the same curves of the fins that were already there, just adding some more lines in here, varying lengths. Maybe some that are closer together like that. And then I'm just connecting the ends with these little sort of half circles. And don't worry if your lines look rough to begin with, because what I do is I then go back and just smooth them out, darken them up a little bit. I like to sort of darken them like right at the end and then maybe down here at the base. And it gives it that nice like dimension of having that thicker line at the base and a little bit thinner line in the middle. Trying not to put my hand over the top so you can see. If you find that something needs a little bit more of a curve, you can just add that. Okay, added that little curve there. So you can get kind of creative with it. And you can always go back after your painting is done. If you feel like something needs more detail, you can add it after your painting is dry. And you can also just add some extra lines in here like this, like some random extra lines if you think it needs it. I'm going to do the same thing up here. This fin. I'm just adding some lines like that, following that same curve of the outer edges, this fin. So they're all kind of different lengths just to make it kind of interesting. And then I'm just going to connect those ends. Now you can do this any way you want. You have to do it. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it, but and then I'm just going in there and thickening up some of these lines right at the base. And right at the ends, thickening these up just a little bit. Now I feel like this one needs a few more lines, so I'm just going to add some that don't go all the way out right from the base here, like that. And now I'm just going to move on and do the same thing up here. Add some lines to embellish these fins a little bit. And if you feel like this one's a little bit whiter, if you want this one to be a little bit whiter too, just add another line out there. Doesn't have to follow the original drawing. If you want to add something extra, then you have the opportunity to do that now. And the same thing over here. And again, I'm just like doing sort of varying lengths of these lines. Thickening up these lines here at the base. And I'm going to do the same thing with the tail here. So I'm just going to, follow the same lines of the tail, and I'm kind of starting from like this point down here. So right here. And I'm just going to make some lines here that are curved with different lengths. And as you can see, they're pretty light, so I'm just getting the lines in there as a baseline. And then I'm going to darken some of these up right at the base. depending on your pen. I think mine's like kind of starting to dry out a little bit. You might have darker or lighter lines. And then I'm just going to start connecting the ends of these lines here. So I'm just going to connect these with these nice half circles. I did something different here. I added another line. Did it sort of a curve going the other way. And then I might add some lines, a few more lines coming from the ends of the tail. Darken up some of these. You know, if you get an extra line or two in there that you weren't anticipating, you can just add a little bit of a curl to it and make it into something else. Okay, well, we're going a little bit longer than I thought on the drawing, but that's okay. The last part of it is I added some scales and just some stippling, so these little dots for texture. So for the scales, I just sort of started with these little half circles and made sort of an alternating pattern, just going down the body here. And this is totally optional. You don't have to, I kind of like how this adds a little bit more detail and texture. I think this was like the last thing I did on this painting was add the scales, but it's just little half circles kind of going down the body. And I'm just drawing them in first, and I'll go back and sort of refine them. Some of them kind of go off to the side here. And probably what we'll do here is we'll get our basic lines in and then move on to our watercolor. And then you can, in your own time, sort of, you know, refine the lines a little bit more later after your painting has dried. So I'm going to add a little bit of texture, just some dots. So I'm just tapping my pen onto the paper. And this is called stippling. And just add some nice texture. I'm gonna do that around the eye. So I've got some down here by the mouth. I'm gonna do that by this eye. So I'll hold that up so you can see sort of what that looks like.
Mhm.
Freckles.
Yeah. But I mean, really, if you didn't want to add any watercolor to this, you wouldn't even have to. But we are going to. So, you know, just wherever you want a little, it's kind of adds a element of kind of shading, texture, makes it a little more interesting. I put some back here at the top of the tail. And then one more thing I did add to this was just some sort of these little lines on the side as sort of some shading to give the head and body a little bit of roundness right on the side. So just some little lines. And I'm going to take a picture of this before we start painting so I can include it in the instructions for you, what it looks like before we start painting. And so that's pretty much it for that drawing. I'm just going to take a picture here. How's everybody doing with that?
Good.
Good.
So I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So far, my eye that's coming from the back side of the body
Mm-hmm.
has sort of a googly eye appearance, and I'm not sure what to do about it, but I'm thinking maybe the watercolor fixes
Yeah.
that.
I mean, you could, you know, it looks like I just painted pretty dark on that eye.
Oh, okay. It's not all pen,
Um,
watercolor too.
yeah, there's watercolor on there. I
Oh.
think some blue and then Payne's gray over it.
Okay.
I mean, you could, like on this eye too, you could draw some, you know, curved lines, you know, you could start like sort of filling in the eye
Okay.
with some pen if you wanted, just to make sure it's nice and dark.
Uh-huh.
I think you can do it pretty easily with just the watercolor.
Sure. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
probably just getting ahead of myself here.
You could like draw in a little, like I'm going to draw in that little circle for the light reflection. I don't know if I got that in the right place, but that's okay. And then just paint dark around in the whole thing other than that little reflection.
They do have googly eyes, though.
They do.
They're
They
gross.
kind of have funny looking eyes.
I haven't seen one in a long time.
Well, I have some, let me see. I have some pictures here. I didn't want to show these at the beginning because I didn't want anybody to get too hung up on what something was supposed to look like. Do I
You
need
know us too
have-
well.
I don't know. They're pretty small, so it's kind of hard to see. But the eyes, they do just sort of like
Google out.
This one you can't
Yeah.
see.
Okay.
This one is just sort of a black blob for the eye.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it at this point.
Okay.
Wait till you've got the watercolor on, and you can always, add more pen or something.
I went to a park in Japan that was dedicated to koi ponds.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. They just, because they have little machines where you can pay to get the feed,
Mm-hmm.
like mound up with each other with their big googly eyes.
Oh.
Trying to get the feed. There's some seriously googie eyes.
Okay, so is everyone at a good point
Mhm.
to start painting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like I said, now I kind of like to let my pen dry for just a few minutes, but you should be fine. I'm going to bring my water container over here and spray my paints. I'm just going to be using a couple colors here. I'm going to be using ultramarine blue, cerulean, and Payne's gray. Feel free to use, if you want to do the reds or the oranges. You could mix red and yellow together and get orange. I'm going to stick with a pretty limited palette just for the sake of this painting. And I'm going to start with the wet and wet on the body. And then I'm just going to use brush strokes for the fins and the whiskers. So I'm going to keep it pretty simple for this because we have a really good established drawing. We don't probably need a whole lot of watercolor work. We'll just let the watercolor work for us. So I'm just painting clear water over the body. I'm going to skip the fin here. I'm just going to try to avoid that for now. And I'm going to paint over the eyes too, because we'll come back and we'll embellish those a little bit or give them a little more detail with the watercolor. So I'm just painting over the whole thing with water. And then I'm going to start with my lighter colors, and I'm going to work my way to the darker ones. So I'm going to start with the cerulean. I'm just bringing it out into my mixing area to prepare it. And then I'm just going to make sure I've got enough water on here. So I'm going to drop in all the colors one after the other. I'm going to start with the cerulean, and then I'm going to do the ultramarine, and I'm going to add some Payne's gray. So I'm going to bring my cerulean, and so we're doing a wet and wet technique here. I'm just dropping the color in like that. I kind of like to start from the edges and work my way in. And I'm just going to pick a couple areas here, like that side, the top of the tail, and this side. And I'm just going to try to get up as close to the edge here as possible with this. But isn't that beautiful how you've already got this drawing here and we're just
Body.
embellishing it with this nice flowy wet and wet.
Now, is flowy a word?
It's a technical term. So
I love it.
and maybe just a little bit over here. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure I'm just going to add a little bit more water in these clear areas to make sure that I can't see where my water is the problem right now. I'm just going to make sure I've got enough water. And then I'm going to just start adding some of this ultramarine. So I'm going to bring that out into my mixing area. And I want kind of fairly darker colors with this wet and wet because it's going to dry a little bit lighter than it looks. And I'm going to go in. Now you don't have to fill in all the spaces. We want some white space here. So I'm just going to add, I might just put that right over the top of the cerulean. I'm going to add this in a few places. Going right over the top of the cerulean here too. And down here. And I like to kind of make it darker. I'm going to go right over the top of this eye and this eye now. I like to make it darker towards the edges. And I might put just a little bit right there. And then while it's still wet, I'm going to have to clean my mixing area here. I'm going to bring in some of the Payne's Gray. Viridian would be a nice color for this. If you wanted a nice blue-green. So I'm mixing a little bit of water with this Payne's Gray because it's a very dark color. And then drop some of that in a few places. You don't want to overdo it because it's a very dark color. Yeah, maybe over here. I'm just kind of tapping that color in there while the paper is still wet. Maybe some down here. Is everybody still good on time?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely. We could just paint all day.
good.
Let's do this one and do another one and then do another one. Just do lots. The ugly fish.
Now for the rest of it, I'm going to stick to a wet on dry, just a lot of brush strokes. Just a lot of nice fun brush strokes. I'm going to start with the whiskers down here, and I'm going to bring in some cerulean. I'm just going to use the tip of my brush here. I'm going to follow along these lines that I've got drawn here. And then if I want to, I can just add a few more, just like little random brush strokes here, just to embellish that a little bit. And then maybe come in with some Payne's Gray, just a little bit right at the base, and add a few little brush strokes here. Just add a little bit of darkness to that. Then I'll move up to this fin. Again, I'm going to start with the cerulean. And I'm just going to start at the base here, and I'm going to use my brush to just add some brush strokes like this. So really, I can go out even outside the lines here. No problem. You don't even have to go up as far as I did. But, and I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to go over to the other fin. I'm going to do the same thing, just starting at the base, and I'm just pulling my brush up along, just following the curve of those pen lines. I kind of push down more towards the base of the fish, and then I let up on the pressure. So I'm going to do this on all the fins. I'm going to add some cerulean. I'm going to do a couple layers. I'm going to come back and add the ultramarine blue and a little bit of Payne's gray too. But I'm going to start with the cerulean, just those really easy, light brush strokes. So same thing here, sort of pushing down and then lifting up. I'm just following the curve of that line, not like trying to stay in any certain lines there, because we've already got our pen drawing established and we're just really kind of adding to it now. Same thing over here. And then with the tail, same thing. Kind of pushing down on my brush and then like letting up as I get towards the end of that brush stroke. And if your brush is a little drier, if you don't have a whole lot of paint or water, you'll get some of this texture of the paper coming through, which is kind of nice if you want that. So I'm just adding those brush strokes like that.
Kind of like the grass brush strokes, huh?
Yeah, like the grass brush strokes, kind of like that. So it depends on what you want. If you want like a thicker line, then get more paint on your brush. If you want kind of a line where you have that texture showing through, then get less paint on your brush. So I'm going to go right back down here to this fin and I'm going to switch over to the ultramarine blue. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of water up here. And I'm just going to add a few more. I'm going to glaze some brush strokes right over the top. I'm doing some little smaller ones. So these are like, I'm using more like the tip of my brush to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted, you could just, do one color. You don't have to do multiple colors, but I just want to show you what it would look like. So again, just following the curve, those lines, I'm kind of using more of the tip of my brush this time. So I've got the nice thicker cerulean blue there, and this is just adding a little bit more
So this
texture.
this could work like it with a 2-color painting if you wanted to
Yeah,
try just do a 2-color painting.
definitely. I think, like the cerulean, you don't even need the ultramarine blue in this, really. You could just do the cerulean and Payne's gray.
What about natural tint?
Or
What's that? How does that work?
natural tint. Is that like the black
No, it's
color?
I don't know if it's clear or I don't
I don't
know.
know what that is.
I just heard it and I was curious. It's supposed to be, I think it's clear.
Let me write that down and find out.
Yeah,
I have
natural
not used that. Natural
tint. Let me
tint.
give you. I have a tube of it. I got it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's called natural tint, and it's actually kind of clear. Let me just
Mm-hmm.
let me just dab out a little bit of it and see what it looks like on paper. I haven't. I read all these books.
Mm-hmm.
I've run across the name.
It's kind of black,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, that's what I thought.
it's opaque.
Hmm.
You can see through it.
Oh, transparent.
Transparent. That's what I
Yeah.
meant. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going back while you're doing that. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of Payne's gray to these fins, and I'm just going to sort of stick to more like the base here. I got too much on there. Just like at the base of the fins here, just to sort of darken up
Got it.
the base.
Yeah, I just tried the natural tint and it's
Uh-huh.
easy. It's easier to control. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't come on overwhelmingly black like the Payne's gray does.
Mm.
Payne's gray comes off, if you're not careful, it just comes off straight black.
Yeah.
But this, just a little dab, it just kind of comes off. It's, yeah,
Interesting. I'll have to check that out.
yeah, interesting.
Well, there are many, many
Oh, jillions.
options and ways to do these things. It's great how much you can experiment, find your own, what you like, you know.
Mhm.
I love learning about new things like that.
Yeah, I got this great book called There's Breaking the Rules for Watercolor.
Hmm.
Breaking the Rules of Watercolor by Shirley Trevina. It's a really good book. It's real interesting. Talks about, how to achieve different colors.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I'm crazy for books. I like to, if I can read about it.
Now, my eyes, this eye is not quite dry yet. And that was going to be the last thing I did. But this one seems drier. I'm just going to kind of paint in that eye with a little Payne's gray. Depends on how dark you want it. I really think I'm probably pushing it a little bit. Well, it looks okay.
Mine's so dark it looks like a tumor. Oh, living in the bay off of San Francisco, mercury infested water.
So what did you color the eye with?
I did a little Payne's gray.
Pink gray, okay.
Yeah, I would start kind of lighter and then you can always add
Add to it
more,
then.
you know.
Right.
I think that if you make the eye nice and dark, it makes it look less weird. And then, if I kind of like to add a little bit of darkness. I'm just going to like add a little bit more Payne's gray right along the body next to the eye, and it kind of makes it not stick out as much. You know what I mean? I just
Okay, I'm gonna
glazed
go.
some of that. Bye.
See you later. Have a good
Okay.
weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Happy Mother's
Bye,
Day.
happy Mother's
Thanks,
Day.
you
Mother's
too.
Day.
If it's applicable.
Bye.
I think I'm better off with drawing afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
I can't
Well, it
draw in
works.
the lines. I can't color in the lines, and it's kind of. I think I would. The pencil's great, but I think I would do the ink at the end.
Yeah. Well, everybody has a different way. And like I said, I've done it both ways too.
Well, the
Just
problem
depends on what you like, you know?
I have my ink, and then all of a sudden, colors out past.
Oh, mine is too. On all the fins and the whiskers that I didn't stay in the lines on purpose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't have to stay in the lines for this. The only place I did that was on the body. For the
Good.
fins, I have brush strokes definitely outside the lines there.
My body oozed out a little bit also, but we will try harder next time.
Yeah. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add some spatters just to give like the illusion of water. So I'm just going to add a few up here and a few down here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more water to the cerulean and the Payne's gray. So I want it to be really, really watery for the spatters. So I get it real watery and then really like scrub my brush around in there and get loaded up with that really nice watery. And then I'm going to hold my brush like this. So I'm showing you the side view right now, but I'm going to tap down with my finger on the brush over the part where I want to spatter. So I'm going to hold it over that area and I'm just going to tap down. So you have to tap down with some force. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. So I'm going to do two colors. I'm going to do the cerulean and the Payne's gray. So I'm going to add some more water to this Payne's gray. And then I'm going to add a few spatters of the Payne's gray too. And like I said, after it dries, I can even see places in here that I didn't, do as much pen work as maybe I want. Like I would definitely go back in here and just define these scales a little bit more. And the other places that, looks like I want to just define it a little more. So you can see on this one, I made the scales, I sort of made them thicker in the middle and thinner on the outside. So you can go back in and do things like that, or just, clean up any edges that aren't, um, as smooth as you want. But like I definitely went outside the lines with this painting. I've got paint going outside the edge of the mouth, and I think that's totally fine. I mean, I think this painting is supposed to be more, we've got a interesting mixture of definition and looseness. We've got a lot of definition with the ink, but then we've got some looseness with the paint, and I think that's kind of a nice combination. So I wouldn't get too hung up on like staying inside the lines on this one. I think it kind of like adds something if you don't a little bit, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, now it's, I feel much more comfortable since you said you went out the lines yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is a very good start.
Good.
Yeah, I
Yes,
like it.
I will paint this over again and again.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, and you don't have to start from scratch. Just use
No.
your tracing again, add a little bit more graphite to the back and use that same tracing. You've got a good foundation there with your drawing, and then you can paint it again.
Yeah, it
I mean,
actually looks like a fish.
yeah.
It does look like a fish.
I have a question.
Yeah.
May I write down, please, the exact name of the pen you're using? Because I've tried Micron and it bled on me. So yeah, every time I've tried
Yeah.
that I've got at home, it's bad.
It's this
So the-
one. Oh, I use this micron. Your micron bled?
Yeah.
I
Mine-
think you have to like really read whether it's waterproof or not, because I know
Yeah, mine's
this one-
waterproof.
this one says Micron micropigment ink for waterproof and fade proof fine lines, but they might have pens that aren't waterproof.
Apparently.
Um, so
I
this
have
is
one of
just
those.
this isn't even like a drawing pen, but it is. So this is called a Sharpie pen.
Okay.
So it's different than like this.
Right.
This
right.
Sharpie, these are like more, you get that purplish black.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is black. It's permanent waterproof. And it's also archival.
Hmm.
It's a newer product, and you can get these at Target or Walmart, or you can buy them by the box on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
And I
Right,
think
how
a
much?
box is like $12. They're really affordable.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have them at the art supply store. I haven't looked for them.
Well, I asked for them when I was there a few
Uh-huh.
weeks ago, and she said they didn't have anything like that. Because I asked her for the black fine tip permanent, watercolor pen marker,
Yeah.
and she said we don't carry that, so.
Yeah, the micron is much more expensive.
But
I
Yeah,
just
they
use
do
the
have
Sharpie.
Micron pens there, but yeah, I mean, this works too. I've used this for these kinds of things. It's permanent,
that's
it's
what I use.
waterproof, it's got a nice fine tip.
Mhm.
right.
And it didn't bleed on me.
And that's good. Yeah. So
Yeah. This says archival, but it doesn't say it's so,
doesn't say
it
waterproof.
doesn't say
Yeah.
it's waterproof and
I've also got some Faber-Castell
okay.
India ink pens. I don't have them with me, but I'll try to bring them for next time so you can see. India ink, permanent waterproof India ink. Those are really nice.
Sure.
I got a
yeah.
set with like different widths.
So I need to go. So thank you, Catherine, very much.
Okay.
And happy Mother's Day to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. You
Bye-bye.
too.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yes, I hope you enjoyed the class. And if you
Good.
have any questions afterwards, or if you want to share pictures of your work, I always love to see that.
Let's see.
How soon is
Believe
the posting?
Oh,
for the-
nice.
Oh, nice.
Ooh,
That's great. I love the color.
Well, thanks. My pen was bleeding and it was brownish. And I thought, well, okay, let's do an orange-ish fish.
There you go. And you can always go over it after it's dried and with, pen again,
Yeah,
of course, to, refine anything that faded.
yeah. And I'm
So,
gonna redo my, touch up my original drawing. I would have made the top fin more toward the face and a little bit shorter. And, after I had the ink on there, I couldn't change it.
yeah.
here's mine.
But I'm liking it.
Oh, nice. Looks
Oh,
great.
It's a beginning.
beautiful.
Yeah.
The eyes are pretty good. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you. When are your new class is going to be posted?
Probably, yeah, I'm shooting for like in the next week. I think
Okay.
I've got everything lined up that I want. Although I just, now I like that idea of the hummingbird. So I have to work that out and add that to the schedule. So that'll be good. So yeah, within the next week I should have it out.
I sent my son a text because he pays for a lot of my art classes.
Hmm.
And I said, emergency, ASAP, call me back ASAP, emergency. So he called me. He says, Mom, I'm in a meeting. What is it? And I said, well, my art class is up and you got to pay for it. And he said, this is not an emergency. I said, emergency to me. He said, from now on, if it's not a medical emergency, medical emergency,
say
put
it's an emergency.
911, otherwise ASAP, and that means you can wait 5 minutes to call me back instead of 1 minute.
That's good. Compromise.
I said, I gotta get in there, man. I get beat out. I won't get in the class. Hurry up. Gotta be quick.
I'll always make room for you. All right. Well, I will send out the instructions and the video.
Thank you.
And if you get a chance to watch the video, let me know about whether the quality was better this time. So I'm working on a new process for that. So
Will it replace the old videos that we have? I mean, we could keep those old videos, right?
yeah.
Over and over
I'm
again.
not replacing any of those. So I'm just trying to make them better as I move forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great Mother's Day weekend.
You too.
And I'll see you soon.
Thank you.